I am Andrew.
That's what I love.
Mr. Mallard. Join me as always, Mr. Chief of Morale himself, Bud Copeland. Bud, how are you this evening before we get
So the point being is good golfers are fucking dime a dozen. And we saw it in full swing that the line of demarcation between...
Are you ready, Bud? Are you ready for the players? Are you ready to make money? Are you ready to try to beat me?
I didn't do my homework this week.
What's happening, everybody? Welcome into Divots and Pivots. It's Tuesday night here on the Fantasy Sports Corporation. I am Andrew LeDuc, a.k.a. Mr. Mallard. Bud will be joining me here shortly. I believe he's just having some connectivity issues, but that don't matter. We will get into it. Exciting week of golf for the first full tournament event of the year this past week with the Sony Open. So we're going to get into that. We're going to get into what happened overseas in Dubai with Rory and all that going on. So we're going to get into that. We're going to get into a bunch of other stuff, and we're going to get into some news. So stick around. We're right here. That's right. Let's get into the news, and the fourth wall, as always, going down right now. I am sorry. Bud will be joining us here in a second. I forgot to send him the link to get him into the show, so that is my bad. But let's kick it off and have him join in the minute. Let's talk about Grayson Murray's win this week at the Sony Open. I want to pull up because I want to get the story right, because his story was quite fun to watch here. Let me pull up the tweet he had here. So if you remember I believe it was like 8 months ago when they had the player-only meeting for the PGA Tour, Grayson Murray was the guy who stood up from the back and was talking about how it'd be fair for everyone to get the same money, same opportunity. Speaking of, here comes Bud right here. Sorry, Bud.
Because I'm not one to throw people under the bus.
No, that was all me.
Okay, so then we can move on.
I threw myself under the bus before you could come in. No, all you missed was the new swanky news. We just rolled that out because I was just going to roll right into the news until you got on, and so I was just talking about the Sony Open real fast and getting into Grayson Murray before you got in. So before we get to that though, now that you're here, how are you? Any words of wisdom as we start the night off for the masses here?
Yeah, check your messages. I guess. I don't know. No, big news for me. Adrian Meronk wins DP World Tour Player of the Year. Now, for folks who are like, what are you even talking about? DP World Tour for the uninitiated is the year. What are we drinking tonight? Hold on, pause. Was that a Truly?
It was a Truly. Yeah, it's one of them lemonade ones.
Basic.
Don't worry, for when that one's done, I do have the whiskey here ready to go.
I got my standard coffee black with some apple juice on the side.
Nice.
Adrian Meronk. So the DP World Tour, European PGA Tour has been the European Tour, has been everything. They were one of the first big golf entities to start getting a ton of this, I guess, Middle East money, Saudi money, whatever you want to say. They started playing tournaments down in Dubai. Famously, now they lead off their season in the Middle East. That's where they are right now. But just like how postseason awards come out well after the season ends, the DP World Tour didn't end when the FedEx Cup ended. It went until November, December. And it's weird because Rory won his third DP World Tour Rolex Series Race to Dubai championship belt, whatever the hell they call their kind of FedEx Cup thing.
Yeah.
And Meronk was, I'm probably saying that wrong too. Somebody's gonna be like, dude, you're butchering that. But Adrian Meronk.
I think it's Meronk. I think you actually are right in this case.
He won a handful of times. He was famously snubbed for the Ryder Cup, even though they were going back to the Italian or the host of the Italian Open where he played. And so with this kind of player of the year and his finishing, I want to say he finished like third or fourth on the DP World Tour. behind like Victor Hovland and Rasmus Højgaard or Nikolai Højgaard. It was one of the brothers Højgaard. I can't remember which one it was. The brothers Højgaard and Rory. So I mean, he finishes 4th, but he ends up being Player of the Year, which I think, and I don't know how it's calculated over there. It sounds to me like it's a vote. Don't at me, bro. I didn't do my homework on the DP World Tour voting for Player of the Year. But what the coverage is showing is that it was kind of well-earned, well-deserved. It wasn't a surprise to anybody, especially when you talk about the other guys I mentioned, mostly playing on the PGA Tour, with the exception of the Højgaard, who was primarily over there. But with that status, he's part of that that kind of top 10 DP World Tour finishers get status on the PGA Tour. So that was this global alliance. Not to dive too deep into LIV, but we're going to get there eventually.
We will.
This when kind of the reshifting of the realignment of golf was going on. The DP World Tour and the PGA Tour have had a long history. Obviously, one kind of not spun out of the other, but they kind of grew up together, and now they're co-entities, so to speak. They are definitely independent entities from one another. Again, don't at me with your details, but they do have this strategic alliance, and it got criticized because it does sound like it's much more set up for the PGA Tour to kind of pull the best from the DP World Tour over. But when it was designed, that's where all the opportunity was. Who knows with this global tour direction that we're going in? But the DP World Tour, part of that agreement was, all right, the top 10 finishers on the DP World Tour who don't already have status on the PGA Tour get invited to come over the following year, which is a huge deal. It gets into these signature events. They carry a lot of prize money, and also it's just more opportunities to get into the majors, because at the end of the day, that's really all that we care about, is who's going to be at the majors. And I don't even know if we care how they get there, but no, we just want to know that the top guys are going to be together 4 times a year. And I do think that that's where people like Phil missed the boat, where he says, LIV is going to try to get the top guys together more often, or this whole shakeup is going to bring the top guys. Nobody gives a rat's rear. Golf junkies are going to watch, like I did on the Sony Open, 3-way playoff down to the twilight.
So
and
good.
Then, and check in on the DP World Tour, watching Rory rope hook one in the water. We'll get into that. But Adrian Marunk, I was big on him earlier this year. I'm going to be big on him this year. And he's no stranger to the States. I think he went to college in Tennessee or East Tennessee State or one of those schools. Like a lot of these European golfers, they come over here for the collegiate opportunities, because, again, closer you are to American soil, I guess, the more opportunity you have for the PGA Tour. Anyway, that's how I'm doing. I'm happy for my boy Adrian Marunk, and I was cracking on your Truly, because I'm sporting a Bartlett for America mug tonight in honor of our kind of conversation we're gonna have later about weekend movies. But let's get back to what we were actually here to talk about. Like you alluded to, the news. I already knocked out DP World Tour Player of the Year, because I know that's what everybody tuned in to hear about.
Everybody, we saw a big news, a big viewer drop right after you were done that, because they got what they wanted.
Yeah, absolutely. Catch us on the pod. Yeah. So bullet 2, Grayson Murray. What did I miss? Where did you go? How deep did you get?
Well, look, I went back to 8 months ago is how deep I went, if you listened last week, I actually alluded to this event happening, because I forget the name you brought up, but I thought, wait a minute, was that the guy who spoke up from the back of the players only meeting? You correct me, it wasn't him, but we didn't have the name of the guy it was at the time.
I didn't correct you. I was wrong. I didn't think that Grayson Murray was at that meeting, because I thought it was my brain was still stuck on Mackenzie Hughes being pissed off, being locked out of the top 30 meeting.
Yeah.
This was a completely different meeting. This was literally like the day after, and Grayson just happened to be in that room. Yeah,
but Mackenzie Hughes is the one that I thought it was, and so we were both wrong. Either way, Grayson Murray was the guy.
My lead. I appreciate you.
8 months ago, 8 months ago, that players meeting happened. Grayson's in the back, stands up, has a voice about the kind of the equal sharing of the money, opportunity, all that jazz. And Rory is up in the front and famously yells back the quote from that meeting: "Play better," to Grayson Murray, which and I think we talked about it here on the show. We said, okay,
wasn't wrong,
not wrong, and kind of shut Grayson Murray up. But what Grayson Murray did from there, which I didn't know until I looked back at it, is quite awesome, because he went back, and now for the last 8 months, apparently he's been sober for the last 8 months, which I don't know if he had a problem before or whatever, but he chose the path of getting that right. If that's what he needs to do. He also regained his PGA Tour status by way of the Corn Ferry Tour, so he went out there and grinded it out. And then Sunday, today's Tuesday, Sunday he gets out there and pushes himself into a three-way playoff with Benny On and Keegan Bradley. Keegs was seemed to be in control going out there. Grayson Murray puts it in the trees or in the rough. Not the great lie. Benny On, Keegs put it in the fairway, bomb it. And Murray goes out there, heads it a great approach shot to just lay it up, and then sticks it within 4 feet for a little tap-in birdie putt on a par 5 to finish the day off. And Keegan and Benny On couldn't close. Benny On, Keegan, I get it. Like he didn't put himself in great shot. He had a long putt to do it. So like that one, I was like, he just screwed up. Benny On had like a 5-6 footer, and he just choked it and missed it below the hole. Just really didn't go after it. And Murray comes out with the win in the 3-man 1-hole playoff win. And for that journey, that 8-month journey for him, it's just an awesome story, because even down to the way he had to win that playoff hole, he just said, okay, yeah, fine. He kind of accepted his position on the tour where he was, as Rory pointed out in front of everyone, and said, okay, fine. Let me own that. Let me grind. Let me get back to where I need to be, what I need to do.
Well,
So
this is also, and it's back-to-back weeks. We talk about guys coming over who have publicly gone through a battle with substance abuse, addiction, whatever you want to call it, issues, demons, etc. And Grayson, he actually, the playoff hole, he sank a bomb to win. It was when he stuck that dart, that was on 72nd. But you're right. Keegan was.
That's right. I'm sorry. The short one was to tie. You're right.
Keegan was in a position to close. Benny On had a putt for the win, and neither one of them could do it. Grayson stuck it, nails, and then on the first playoff hole drains a bomb to get his win. And you're right.
The holes reversed. You're right.
He did. Happens all the time, right? Who hasn't that happen to? He saw the depths of hell. He was a winner before. He won one of these kind of second tier tournaments. I want to say it was like the Barbasol or the Barracuda or something of that ilk. And he's been there, but then just like Chris Kirk, he just kind of, people have their battles. Everybody's going through something. And some it's tougher than others. And he kind of found that the path, and he is on it now. And I think once they understand that these guys are special. I mean, and when you operate at that level, they were just channeling their energy in the wrong place. And sometimes it's so academic that, once it just kind of locks into place. Oh, okay. So this is what life can be like if I kind of stay focused, and remind myself and stay humble. You talk to any of these guys who struggle with addiction and humility, you're never done. You're always, it sounds weak, but it's not. You have to remind yourself that you're always vulnerable to a slip up. And so to see him get back to where he was, and a quick backtracking on that players meeting, I did a little more follow-up reading on it too. And apparently Wesley Bryan, another PGA Tour pro, was in the room, and he was quoted later as saying like, it wasn't as contentious as it was reported. It went down how it was reported. Yeah. Great.
The words were said.
Great. Grayson screamed from the back, you lied to us. You should resign. And I guess Rory just chirped, play better, Grayson, or just play better. I don't know if he addressed my name, but he did say that afterwards and Brian insinuates that both Grayson and Rory were there. We're kind of mucking it up a little bit, making light of it. It was collegial, it was lighthearted. Because it was probably one of those moments of like, you've got a point. Yeah, you've got a point too. Like it's, so what are you going to do? Like, we're both right. So let's move on. But I love that Grayson's back. And there was a really nice, borderline sweet moment after the win where our boy Akshay, and I know we've been big AB fans for a while now.
And I have a feeling he'll be showing up later in the show as well. Don't worry.
And he, you tease. But he walked out onto the green to congratulate Grayson too, because there's some kind of Corn Ferry Tour brethren there. And it was funny. He said, you and me, buddy, because Akshay's been playing well. And you're right. He is going to show up later because he's going to be a staple in my lineup until he cracks through, because he already won it kind of in the shoulder season, one of those off events. But I got a feeling we're not too far off from him really locking it in, because he came out strong at the Century. He meandered around and didn't do terrible at the Sony Open. My lineup was down to him and Brendan Todd. It was a sad day for me. But he went out and congratulated Grayson and said, you and me, buddy, we're gonna ride this and work our way to number 1 and 2 in the world. So cool things coming out of the Sony Open. Now, not PGA Tour related. We
Nope.
can't go. We can't go. And there's a couple of different things, and I'll give you the pick. Where do you want to start as we introduce? We really should just have a live segment of the week, and whether it's
We really should.
whether it's a minute or 15 minutes or God knows, sometimes it'll be the whole show. I have some updated thoughts and gripes and opinions about news and live golf, but where do you want to start?
Well, is your gripes schedule related? Because my gripes are Nike related. Not gripes, but my thoughts are Nike related. So if we're both Nike related, then let's go to Nike. But unless you have, because I don't necessarily care about the live schedule.
I have both.
You, then let's breeze through the live schedule first. I think we're gonna spend longer on the shoe stuff and Brooksy and all that.
Well, we're not even going to visit the schedule. They just finally announced they finally locked in places for tournaments coming up in March and April. And one of them in April is they're going back to Trump Doral down in South Florida. It's going to be the week before the Masters. It's going to be they're trying to set this up as their kind of warm up to the major season. But taking 3 steps back and again, kind of putting Mr. Norman on blast because I'm sure I'm on his radar.
Totally.
Live is when you and this is also for the keyboard warriors out there. When you compare the two products, now PGA Tour does have a product issue. Rory was right. The sponsors are still being asked to pay the same amount, if not more money, and the product has not evolved. That lives in its own universe. I'm not trying to do a side-by-side comparison. The point that I was getting at is Live is still in the beta testing, almost sophomoric kind of, you would expect this kind of organization from somebody with limited means.
Yeah.
But the fact that it's January and they just now finally either locked in, announced, what have you, locations for this year. I don't care that you spent $500 million to buy the world number 2 and then put him on a shelf. We haven't seen John Rahm or heard from him since, which is part of the deal. And they all kind of know. You almost felt like when he went on Hannity or whatever Fox News show he did with that live golf jacket on, you almost felt like he was giving like he was a space explorer. He's like, I'll see you guys around. I don't know if I'll ever see you again or if I'm ever. It's weird, but they all get it. They all buy it. They all understand it. I just think to myself, where do people still get off thinking that like this is the future? Or now they're grasping on, hey, look, shook up the game of golf. And it's like, we've gone through this before.
I know.
If I get a nice, big, beautiful house because it was burned down in arson and you're like, hey, but check out the new house you got. I'm like, I still had to go through somebody burning my other one down. So the way that this change is coming about is still, to me, not cause for celebration, and nor is there room for live people, and I mean that in the most objectively judgmental sense that I can, live people. You live people who still claim that this is the future, this is the way, this is the path. No, it's not. It's a very splashy, high-priced alternative. And I've experienced it. Divots and Pivots was there for season 1 of Live. We went out and saw it, and it was fun.
Yeah, we had a great time.
But it wasn't a competitor for the PGA Tour. It's not. It doesn't have the gravitas. And like in basketball, if the Harlem Globetrotters all of a sudden fell into billions and billions of dollars, and they just started picking off Kevin Durant and LeBron and some of these guys, again, you want to come play a third of the games, no practice, 10 times the money. And that became the retirement circuit. People would show up. They would sell out arenas because of the names. The NBA would continue to thrive because for every John Rahm that gets lured away for $500 million, you've got Gordon Sargent, Christo Lamprecht, Ludwig Aber. You've got this factory. The PGA Tour is strong. Now, they do have issues, and I agree again with Rory. We do need to, I don't know if spice things up is the right way. I think getting a guy like Kiz in the booth was a step in the right direction. I think also, these kind of play through commercial breaks, you got to keep that up. Everybody's got a widescreen. You got to have the side by side. I'll actually pay attention and listen to all of the symptoms of mesothelioma as long as I can watch somebody grind over a 10-footer. I'm not gonna change the channel because I still get the golf. So that's my gripe is stay in your lane. Everybody, and Ian Poulter did it again. He couldn't help himself, and he's out there talking about, oh, Rory, nothing we can't fix over a cup of coffee, but no apology. Shut your mouth. Just shut it.
You're still
No, nobody owes anybody an apology.
No.
You owe me an apology for putting me in this position to chastise you again, Mr. Poulter. You took the money, you ran. Quit acting like your new
Fine.
product is a competitor. It's fine. You can coexist in this world. And I'm sorry that you had to go through the shaming of being ostracized when you'd made a business decision and people wanted to protect their business. It was only once you had a checkbook shaped bazooka pointed at their face that the PGA Tour decided to play ball, because that's how it works in business, right? If your product's not going to outperform us, where else can we beat you? It was in the courtroom, it was in the pocketbook. And so people will say, well, they still won. They didn't win shit. They forced their opponent to the table. So long way to go with LIV. But what you're talking about, I think, is a much more globally interesting point in the LIV universe. Do you want to talk about what's happening with, is it Smash? The boys over at Smash?
Yes, the Smash golf course. I think they go by Smash GC. I keep forgetting, but I think it's the GC they go by.
Golf club, just like those football clubs, like Barcelona. FC
exactly. Yeah, so Brooksy's team Smash, just a week after Nike drops Tiger, Nike debuts, that Brooksy and his team get a shoe deal. And they're not the worst looking Nike. Side note, they're not the worst looking Nike shoes I've seen. I've seen a lot of bad designer shoes. Those ones are not bad. I still don't want a shoe that says, I still don't want a shoe that says Smash across the side of it, but compared to others, they're not bad. But that's beside the point. I don't really care about that. Maybe this is just me being cynical. It can't just be coincidence of the timing of dropping Tiger and lining up with Brooksy over on LIV. I went down a rabbit hole of cynicism with this when this dropped, because I started connecting dots with string on wall and all of a sudden there's a grassy knoll
Alice,
involved.
tell me about your Wonderland visit. Where
all
did
of a sudden
we go?
there's a grassy. No, so this feels like there was a chance that this was this deal was presented to Tiger, and not that they needed his approval, but like he got word of it happening and the conversations were had. And I feel like there's a chance Tiger stepped up and said, it's me or them. Like, I'm not gonna be Nike's flagship face of golf anymore if you're gonna align with Brooks Koepka and Smash and this fake team of his. It just feels too, and maybe I'm going too far, but it just feels too coincidental on the timing for me. And I don't want to believe that Tiger Woods is that stubborn in all this, because if he is, then he's the only one who's still like really holding that ground that this can't just be a business thing. But do you think there's any credence to this happens, that being the case here, or do you think this was just, it was Tiger's time and they saw an opening in their roster of, we need to fill a gap here, this is the best thing we can do right now with our money?
Yeah, no, you're reading way too much into this. First of all, we don't know if this is like a long-term deal or if this is one of those one-offs. I mean, Nike does this all the time. They present their people with specialized, customized shoes for different events. LIV has their first team event coming up in a couple of weeks. Maybe this is just their way of saying Brooksy's still one of our guys. Because Nike, just like some of these other companies, TaylorMade's another one that's famously not told their guys to, step aside. A couple of endorsement deals were broken for whatever reasons, but by and large, yeah, Nike's like, we don't give a shit where he plays. We just want him to play well and wear our stuff. Nike still has Rory under a big contract. They just signed Nelly Korda to a massive contract.
Yes.
They still got Scotty Scheffler. They're doing just fine. Tiger, the timing of it all, I don't think one had anything to do with the other. Honestly, I think these are one off. They are pretty slick looking shoes, and I'm not even like a sneakerhead or anything. But I do like the look of these. But something more interesting than that is that Tiger Woods owns the TW logo. Let me repeat. Nike does not own that TW logo that Tiger would wear. And for a while, famously, it was in his contract. He could wear the TW logo on Thursdays and Fridays, but on the weekend, the swoosh had to be front and center.
Right. Yes.
Let's be honest. Tiger either is part owner, or he's a huge investor, or he's just going to create his own clothing line. Maybe he's pairing up with Acorn Hills, and Nate's just keeping it from us. But Tiger's going to come out with the TW brand. It's going to be just like I said, the Golden Bear and Arnie Palmer and the Black Knight with Gary Player. That's what's going to happen there. I think this was just Nike being super. So I mean, Brooks is a major champion. He's going to play in all the majors again this year. This is just them saying like, hey, business is business. If he's going to get some eyeballs, then we want to make sure that we treat him just like we're going to treat anybody else and try to take advantage of this. That said, I also think it was a strategic play on Nike's part, recognizing that maybe the PGA Tour is not the future of their line, because it is moving into a more niche market where, maybe it's Travis Matthews or it's Malbon or, so Travis Matthews, remember, started out as a surf company. Callaway bought them and turned them into this kind of like, people sometimes don't understand that Callaway owns Travis Matthews, not as hip and off brand as you think. It is one of the main line brands everywhere. It is really cool. It's dope shit. I love their stuff, but that's the big name now. So I think Nike's going to pick they're still just going to pick their places, but they're no longer going to go just everybody coming out of high school, come to us. It's going to be very strategic. And so the Shoegate it's just fun. I think it's Brooksy getting some cool stuff. And I'm more interested in another former Nike guy and Jason Day. He signed with Malbon, we talked about.
Yes.
And Malbon just announced that they signed another high profile golfer, Charlie Hull, British golfer on the LPGA Tour, pretty big following on social media. And she's all of a sudden part of Malbon Golf. And then Minwoo Lee comes out. He's the first Lululemon golfer. And he gave a really interesting interview about that, talking about how, it's interesting. Jason Day went baggy with Malbon. He goes, you don't really see that. And he's like, I think that I identify more with the Lululemon crowd. He's like, he claimed to bring back the mock turtleneck. Tiger brought the mock turtleneck, but his point's valid that we hadn't seen one like he wore it at the Players last year. So Brooksy's deal is fun, but I think it's just going to be an interesting time with golf swag and gear, especially here on Divots and Pivots. Stay tuned for exciting announcements.
It is, but to your point of Lululemon and his point, joggers are like they're making a statement in the golf world right now. And I know I always go here, but the content creators, but the good, like a lot of those guys wear Lululemon, not Lululemon specifically, maybe not, but they wear joggers that tighter, looser kind of athletic pant that apparently you're able to get away with wearing on a golf course in some of these locations that are much more strict with their dress code. They're becoming popular because they are comfortable. They're loose. You can move around in them. It makes sense. So good for Minwoo Lee. Jabberjaw, good evening as well. Love that your fiance loves Lululemon. Get her out on a golf course. Happy to do a product review for us. Let us know how they are out there. And
Jabberwocky.
And Thomas, thanks for tuning in as well. Love you guys tuning in. But yeah,
I'm not even in the front right now. Your boy,
what you got?
I'm wearing Lululemon. I'm wearing some Lululemon, just athletic shorts. They're comfortable as hell. They got the liner in them. Of course, then also topped off with the Acorn Hills pullover. But I think I think this is what you're going to see. So Lululemon. I mean, watch out next. We're going to get like Target. Target's got some really good. They're going to go sign somebody just to say like, hey, motion in motion. You're going to see this movement. We're with more of these guys because it's not. Again, it's not cool to be the same, float against the mainstream or whatever.
Yeah.
Sweetwater is a beer down in out of Georgia that I love, and that's their whole thing, like float against the mainstream. But Minwoo Lee and Lululemon, but with the way he was so proud of his mock turtleneck, and I remember texting, I think it was you, just about that specifically, being like, it felt weird with the mustache and the mullet, but then again,
that's the thing. It's the mustache. I think for me, it's not even the mullet. It's the mustache. It's the combination of all three. If you can do 2 out of 3, as Meatloaf famously said, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. Give me 2 out of those 3. You can't. All 3 together is weird.
So Meatloaf, fun fact. Well, everybody knows this.
Top 3 favorite artists of mine, by the way. So please don't trash on him.
I'm not about to trash him. I'm a big Meatloaf guy. I'm such a big Meatloaf guy. I was watching Fight Club this last weekend.
Yes.
And you forget that he's in there. He plays a major role in that little crew. And where I know we're going to talk about movies here in just a second. But Meatloaf, deep pull. All right, Lululemon. And I guess he's trying to take credit. Minwoo Lee, this is actually why I brought it up. He's trying to take credit or at least associate himself with the phrase "let him cook." And he's like, he'll caption his social media stuff, just chef. And he's not saying he's the owner of it. He is just adopting it. And I think it's kind of,
I'm not. I
I'm
can't.
showing my age.
I can't let him have. No, I can't let him have that. I can't either. He can't let him cook.
Let him cook. Everybody knows that belongs to the unemployed former starting quarterback of the Denver Broncos. Who's going to take that deal? Like where's Russell Wilson going to end up?
I don't know. I can't talk football right now. I can't. All
right. Well, talk about underdog fantasy, and then when we come back, we're going to dive into a little bit of movies before we go to the American Express.
Fantasy Sports Corp and Underdog Fantasy have teamed up to start your fantasy season off in the win column with Best Ball. What is Best Ball? It's quite simply the easiest way to win. No team management, no trades, no waivers. It's their biggest contest ever, and it has only gotten bigger. You simply have to sit and win. You don't even have to set your lineup. Always get your best score every week. Just enter a contest, draft your team, and Underdog will do the rest. What could make this even better? How about free money, up to $100 using our exclusive promo code? Go online now and use the promo code DIVPIV to double your deposit up to $100. You tell them Gingerbread sent you. Good girl.
Real fast, just because it took me a hot second to recognize the screen name. Jabberjaw here. That's Nick from over at Scoreboard Addicts, and I had a faux pas last week when I said stay tuned for after our show for Scoreboard Addicts that coming up. Scoreboard Addicts is on Thursday nights here on Fantasy Sports Corporation, not Tuesday nights. So if you stuck around for the Scoreboard Addicts last week, I apologize. I was mistaken, but Thursday nights is when you can catch those guys right here on the Fantasy Sports Corporation. So thanks for tuning in, Nick. Thanks for tuning in, TJ, as always. So let's get into movies, because you had this idea, top 5 weekend movies. So first of all, where did just a random thought you had that, or were you watching a specific movie this weekend that was like, I want a list of this?
It was one of the movies that's on my list. It's my number one. It's my lead off, and these are in no particular order, but it got me thinking, because it was definitely, we came home from swim with the little one. Cooper Rose is 3.5. She's in swim, and it's freaking hilarious, and I love it. But anyways, we got home, and I'm just flipping through, kind of trying to kill time before football started, and I came across this movie, and I just immediately just turned it on. And my wife was like, we own this. We own it on DVD. We own it on digital. She's like, I'm pretty sure you could watch it anywhere for free right now streaming. Why did you just put this on? And I was like, it's because it's a must. I feel like on Saturday or Sunday afternoons, there's certain movies that if you come across them, you have to at least give it a drive by. You have to pop in. You got to find out first of all, you got to find out where is it in the movie. And then you have to stick around long enough to just get to the next quotable line or scene or something memorable. And so that's when I just texted you. I said, that's it. This week, top 5 weekend movies. And I got to say, I was a little shocked at the first one that you put. And I did.
It's because I watched it this weekend.
I saw that it was on, but I passed it a little bit of judgment.
Oh, no, I Netflixed that.
But because of one of the main characters and how much I love him and his other stuff, and then you go back and then you have to remind yourself it's a Disney. So what's kicking off your list? Top 5, and we'll go back and forth and find out.
Real fast. Nick is also into the movie, so stick around, Nick. Here we go. I'll see what your Tin Cup, stick around for that. He also says the Replacements right here must be watched whenever it's on TBS. I agree. And before I even give any of the ones on my list, I will say this is not even just it's a top 5. These are the first ones that came to my head. You gave me your list, and I said all of those also a must except maybe one.
Yeah.
And really for me, it's like you said, it's about not necessarily my favorite movies of all time, but the ones where I have to check in on. So for me, the one that I watched this weekend that I remembered how much I loved is Cool Runnings. And I don't care. Give me all the shit you want. Cool Runnings is an awesome movie. And I don't care. It's funny. It's lighthearted. But then at the end, you get that awesome sports moment where you're reminded the sports movies don't need to end with a win. They don't need to end. It's just
you're
awesome.
Dead, man.
It gives me all the feels, and I love Cool Runnings. So Cool Runnings was the one that I watched this weekend that I had to put on this list because you texted me while I was watching it.
And like I told you, I came around because John Candy, sneaky good, rest in peace. Gladiator was the movie that kicked it off for me. I turned it on, and it was the scene where he refuses to fight. He's a slave, and they're painting the thing, and he gets hit in the stomach, and then he's like, his time will come. And then I forgot how much straight up gore there was. And I I'm torn about the reboot. Between Mean Girls, which Mean Girls reboot's coming out pretty soon in the theaters. Don't sleep on the new Mean Girls, because they kept some. But Gladiator, this reboot, I'm interested to see it. Your next one, I actually was like, how did this slip my list? But
it's such a good one, and you're gonna see there's a slight little with my list. There's a slight theme of Nicolas Cage in my list here, which I'm slightly embarrassed.
I'm all right with that.
But at the same
I'm all
time,
right with that.
Screw it. I find Nicolas Cage enjoyable. So for me, The Rock with Nicolas Cage and Sean Connery. I'm sorry, that movie. Growing up, every single time it was on TV, I stopped and watched it. It was a fantastic movie. Whenever they pull those little Kool-Aid looking fucking green balls out that are gonna blow up the world, basically. And whenever they're fumbling them and they're rolling around, like, give me that crawling through the vents. Like, I love The Rock.
The best line, one of the best lines in movies is when Sean Connery, your best. Losers always whine about their best. Winners go home and fuck the prom queen. But then your boy Cage, Marla was the prom queen, or whatever the hell her name is.
Yeah.
Tin Cup was my next on the list. And that's because it's not always going to be on network or even like TBS, but Golf Channel. And I'm such a junkie that 848 in the Salem, Massachusetts area, 848 on Comcast is Golf Channel HD. And that's where I end up half the time. I used to watch it every night before a golf match, which probably tells you a lot about my psyche when I would go onto the course the next day. I know it front to back, inside and out, every word, every, kind of gesture. And I got to say it might be, now we said these aren't our favorites, necessarily. They're in that genre of you got to stop. This is a crossover for me. It's we've talked about top golf movies of all time. It's not my top golf movie of all time, but it is one of my top of all time. Your next one,
it's an obvious one.
It's everybody
does it.
It should almost have been emeritus status, but you pulled out the tearjerker. Well, not really a tearjerker.
So here's what I do, because Nick is still with us here, and he's so big into movies. I'm not gonna say this one just yet, because I want to see if he can guess this next movie that we say. So Nick, if you're paying attention, me and Bud are saying this is the no-brainer. Everybody puts this on their list that they have to stop and watch it when it's on TV. I'm gonna go to my next one and see if Nick comments in the chat what that.
Actually, hold on before you go to the next one, because I put next to yours, and then I put one in parentheses because I needed a space filler. Yes. And the space filler I gave was Roadhouse, because that was my first movie out when I was creating my list.
Such a good one.
But number 3 for both of us, we met in the middle on that one, and then you came back with another Nicolas Cage classic, and Angelina Jolie was so hot in this.
I'm sorry, when you look at this, yes, Angelina Jolie this is one of my favorite movies with her in it. She's absolute fire in it. But this is a great cast in this movie when you look at just how it aged over time. But Gone in 60 Seconds, I freaking love Gone in 60 Seconds. I'm not even a big car guy, but I just love Gone in 60 Seconds. I love the acting, whatever. It's cheesy, but it's also just so entertaining. It's so like mind numbing that you can just sit there and watch it, laugh, and not even know what the hell's going on. So Gone in 60 Seconds for me. This next one for you though, that you put under this one, this is one that I enjoy this movie, but I'm not necessarily, I don't feel like I'm going to stop and watch it if it's on TV, but I do enjoy the movie.
And it's any of them, any of these in this genre, including the brand new one that's still out in theaters. I think it's like Songbirds and Snakes or some shit. The Hunger Games franchise. Honestly, I'm kind of a sucker for the Star Wars franchise, Lord of the Rings franchise, Divergent, any of those series. If it's a good, successful kind of check your brain at the door. Hell, I even went down a Twilight rabbit hole when I was a teacher, because when I was making Harry Potter references, my students were like, what the hell is Harry Potter?
You had to connect.
You got to connect. But the Hunger Games franchise, Jennifer Lawrence, is phenomenal in it. You do have to kind of, it's willing suspense of disbelief. But this latest one, I was skeptical again. I'm skeptical of reboots or kind of pre-boots.
I have to see it.
This latest one is actually worth the price of admission, because they do it really well. Kind of like a 3-act play, not unlike my final one. But first, I got a funny story about yours. Go ahead.
Okay, well, first, just a last note on the Hunger Games. This might be controversial. I'd be more likely to stop the channel and watch any of the Maze Runner movies than the Hunger Game movies.
That's fair. I find
those enjoyable too.
Scorched Earth Trials, like the whole bit. Yeah.
This last one on my list, though, this one was I still feel like people love this movie though, and we'll stop on this one. But The Truman Show. There's something about the way that Jim Carrey acts in The Truman Show, like the way he played that role for me, it's so fascinating to me. The concept of that movie is fascinating to me. Like the whole storyline, I can't not watch the Truman Show when it's on. It's just one of those for me.
Never seen it.
Whoa! Wow! What?
I've never actually sat through the Truman Show, and there's quasi a reason for it. When did Truman Show come out?
That had to have, I'm gonna look it up. That had to have been like 95, I'm gonna guess maybe.
98. All right.
And
here's probably why. It was filmed about 2 hours away from where I grew up at the time. So it was filmed in a little town called Seaside, which is near Destin, Florida, Panama City, the Panhandle, the Redneck Riviera. Okay. And I think just like when it came out, there was so much local buzz because that's also the area where a lot of folks, in Tallahassee have their beach houses down. That's just far enough away, hour and a half, 2 hours away. And so I don't know. I just never actually sat down and watched it. And then I think it was that kind of like high school age where if I was going to the movies, it was either to make out or like sneak booze or, whatever. And so I wasn't really like paying attention to storylines. Yeah. And but now I feel like I have to watch it, and especially because of where it was filmed. And there's a bar or restaurant in Seaside in the town where it was filmed called Bud and Alley's. And those of you who have paid attention to the show before know that my roommate's name is Allie.
Yes. Real fat Nick, I see you're still there. Yes, the Truman Show, Great Boy Meets World, also fantastic show when they make fun of that. Last chance to guess the obvious choice for us for TV movies that we have to stop and watch when it's on. Hit us in the chat, Nick, while Bud gives us his last one here, which I'm a massive fan of this last movie. I applaud you that I did not think of this one because this is one that should have been in my top 5.
So those of you watching on YouTube saw the Bartlett for America mug. I'm a massive Aaron Sorkin fanatic. I think he's my favorite writer, not just screenwriter, playwright, or whatever. He's my favorite writer because of the way that he's able to write dialogue and lay out a story. A Few Good Men. I mean, it doesn't matter where it is. The whole thing is it's a law movie, so it's dialogue driven. It's Aaron Sorkin. It's wicked smart. The story behind it's really cool because he wrote it as a play and he wrote it on bar napkins while he was working, serving popcorn and working as an usher at either on Broadway or just off Broadway in New York City. And so A Few Good Men for me that is another one that crosses over into my kind of top 5 or top 10 all-time favorite movies. And judging from your reaction, we have an answer from the top ropes. What did Nick give us? Yes, 1,000,000%.
Look, I'm not gonna lie. I like Clueless.
My doctor said that I can't participate in any activities where balls are flying at my face. There goes your social life.
So good.
I will still use "you're a virgin who can't drive" as an insult.
Yes.
Just if needs be. So Nick, I applaud you. I salute you.
Nick,
I think
that's a great call up. But no, the one we were looking for, Nick, was Shawshank Redemption. That was our option, the walk in the park that one of us had to put in the list because it just belongs on this list.
Don't go claiming all credit. One of us had to. It was on my list when I went to add my.
That's
my
what I'm saying. If you had it on your list first, I would have also said something along the lines of "duh" because it just had to be accounted for by somebody.
I get very territorial about my movie list, less so about my fantasy golf knowledge because I got to tell you, man, I'm taking some beatings early on in the season. Overall, my emergency 9 from last week did okay. And
Same.
Stick around. We got a tracker that we're building. We got an intern working on it. So social media will have you folks updated on our emergency 9 every week moving forward soon. But in the meantime, my lineup last week was down to Akshay and Brendan Todd trying to bring home the win in my other league because Matty Fitzpatrick missed cut. And I do think there's an element of I shouldn't have gone with any back-to-back guys because I think a lot of those guys who played the Century
that last week,
they just want a GTFO. What was fun was watching Kisner out there slap it around and even admit that he was rusty and how, the booth, might be easier, maybe not. But we're moving on away from the Century. We're back on the mainland. We are at the American Express. We're out west, PGA West. They're playing the Stadium course. They play the Nicklaus course, and then they play La Quinta Country Club nearby. All 3 courses, not necessarily overwhelmingly long, but they are par 72. And then they do play the last round back at the Stadium Course PGA West, which has the kind of not a replica, but they got a Western version of the Island Green. Theirs is on the 16th hole. But all of these are challenging courses, which means it's going to be all around. It's going to be an all around game, and these are tiny greens comparatively speaking to the rest of the slate.
Well, yeah, and the main thing to remember about this week is, as you mentioned, it's 3 courses, and that means it's a 3-day cut. So no cuts will happen until Saturday, and as you said, the Sunday will be the only time that the field is shortened. So you're going to see your point totals. If you're playing DK, you're going to need higher point totals than you would typically used to be seeing because of that. Everyone's getting 3 days of golf. So obviously the totals are going to go up. And you mentioned this, Stadium Course and Nicklaus Course, both very challenging courses. Out of these 3, the La Quinta Country Club is definitely the easiest, is the one that you want to have guys on at the right time, because that's the one that the low scores are really set for the weekend on. And I'm going to get to that a little bit later when it comes to my key 3 stats. I'll say it now. For me, one of my bonus stats, I'm going to say, outside of my key 3, is guys who start.
Wow, free advice?
Day 1 on Thursday on La Quinta. Because starting out the tournament low compared to the other guys who start out on Nicholas, obviously everyone gets to play La Quinta, but you start your tournament off in a tournament that is going to be a birdie fest. It's going to be a low score that you need to win because it's a 3-day cut. To get that out of the way right off the bat and get yourself in good position, it makes the next 2 days when you're playing more challenging courses a little bit easier in your head from the mental standpoint. So give me La Quinta. It's proven in the stats. I believe it was, I want to say the top 13 finishers in recent years. I forget the exact stat, but like the top 13 in the last 3 or 4 straight years has started on La Quinta. Like on average, that's where the most of them come when they finish in the top 13, top 15, whatever. So starting on La Quinta on Thursday is actually a massive kind of little bonus stat for me this week when getting into our key 3 stats. I'm going to let you hit us with your key 3 stats first, though, coming off of that little nugget.
I like that. I kind of like that as a, like you said, I think it's a bonus stat. I don't think it's nothing you hang your hat on, but I do think that's definitely that's a great tiebreaker because you're right. La Quinta is going to be the one where the scoring is going to happen the most. But at the same time, you look at people who've won this tournament. Hudson Swafford won it a couple of years ago. John Rahm won it last year when he was on that heater. And so, solid players. This is not your, I feel bad. We always shit on the John Deere. This is not your Barbasol. I mean, this is a full field. This is a full field event. And they've got some studs out there. But my key 3, as always, starting off with ball striking, because I just can't quit it. Again, taking approach and off the tee and combining them. It's probably the most well-rounded, snapshot you're going to get of a player. So I start with strokes gained, ball striking. And then all 3 courses, par 72, which means par 5s are going to be great. And specifically in that par 5 scoring kind of family tree, I'm looking at eagles gained. We're gonna see some low scores that, again, with these 3 courses, 54 hole cut, and the way that they are, whoever that cream that's rising to the top is going to be really, really low in numbers. And you only get there if you take advantage of the par 5s. And at this level with these guys, you can't just be expecting to birdie. You have to separate yourself with some eagles. So I'm doing eagles gained, ball striking, and then proximity 175 to 200, because between the par 3s and a wide majority of these par 4 approach shots, who can handle that kind of 200 is really, if I had to just say which number, the 200, within 5-10 yards of that, but 175 to 200, who is in that middle iron, who's got that middle iron game dialed in and can hit it close to these small greens.
No, I like that. And I like that you went with Eagles are better because one of the things I noticed with this is that this week there's going to be 2 par 5s that are between 550 and 600 yards. So 2 very, decently long par 5s are going to be in play this week. So you got to be able to score on the par 5s. Eagles need to be in play when you're talking about low scores. So I like that. I went with so similar proximity, but I went 150 to 175. But honestly, it was a toss up between 150, 175, and 175 to 200. So I get why you went that. I also went birdie or better this week because, like I said, this is going to be a kind of a score fest because that La Quinta course, we're going to get some guys going low. And then for me, par 4s, 450 to 500. Like I said, I think that kind of encapsulates the majority of the par fours, and gets us close to also kind of a rating on what guys are going to be able to do on some of the shorter par fives that are mixed in with those longer ones. So 450 to 500 is where I went for the par fours. And then obviously strokes gained approach as always. And then I did go strokes gained putting again as a fifth stat. But I do want to mention something I changed up this week with putting. I kind of alluded to this last week. I'm going to try it this week to where for all my other stats I do for the past 24 rounds. But something you said guts me last week is that putting can be kind of catch fire, lightning in a bottle. It can turn on a dime for a guy. So for strokes gained putting, I wanted to shorten the sample size a little bit and really try to hone in on the guys that are hot now or who are cold now. So I shortened that to just the last 12 rounds. I cut it in half, and we're going to see what happens. So I'm going to try that out this week. We'll see what happens. But those are my key 3 stats. And with that, with time running low here, let's get into our emergency 9. And if you're new to the program, and if you're new this year, this is a new segment this year we got going called the Emergency 9. Instead of top 10 rankings, we're going to give you 9 rankings because it's just a more pleasurable golf number. And these rankings are meant to be used.
Please don't use the word pleasurable.
These rankings are meant to be able to help you, whether it's on DraftKings, whether it's on Underdog Fantasy, where me and Bud mainly play because we like the snake style draft over on Underdog. But you can use
it's more pleasurable.
It's more pleasurable. You can use it on any of your forms of fantasy golf. These are meant to be kind of all-around rankings. So let's get into our 9 to 7 rankings. And for me, like I said, I did come into play into as a factor here the starting on La Quinta course. For me, it played into my top 5 guys are all guys who are starting on Thursday at La Quinta. After that, I went back into my rankings and kind of got a little custom with them. So 9 to 7 for me. Number 9 is Sam Ryder. Number 8 is JT Poston, who had himself a good week last week. And then number 7 for me is Taylor Pendrith, who I was on last week. He followed it up with, I believe he finished, I want to say he finished T10. Let me double check that right now, but I believe he finished T10 last week at the Sony Open. So Taylor Pendrith is someone I was on last week. I'm on him again. His putting is great. That is my 7 to 9. Sam Ryder, JT Poston, and Taylor Pendrith. Who do you got for me?
In my emergency 9 this week, I'm actually only playing 3 guys that wound up. I got to start that over. Rewind. In my emergency 9, there's only 3 guys that cross over into the top 9 from my model. I am playing some kind of gut shots. Those of you who aren't new to the show know that I'm not scared to shoot from the hip. I'm one of those kind of old school scouts that think that the metrics are there to guide us, not to necessarily make.
He's also not scared to finish last.
As long as she finishes first. I'm bringing in a couple of gut shots with Grayson Murray and Akshay at 9 and 8. Grayson for obvious reasons. You just never know. Hot hand. And once that confidence hits, maybe we've seen a lot of that back-to-back. Scotty Scheffler went on a run. John Rahm went on a run last year. Keegs even had a couple of wins and close calls back-to-back in recent memory. So I'm looking for Grayson Murray to show up. Akshay, again, back on stateside, after 2 decent, really solid showings from a kid coming off a win in the fall. He's going to be living in my top 9 until he wins again this year. And then I'll maybe rotate him out. And then I agree with you, JT Poston. This is just when the numbers kind of line up for me. Where does he finish? He's like 30th in my model, which is close enough to get my attention, especially with his name and just with some of the articles you read. And smart people seem to think that he's going to do well here. So I'll give you some JT Poston as well. Grayson, AB, and JT for my 9, 8, and 7.
I will say, when last year we actually spent a lot of time talking about how we don't pick the winner from the previous week. I will say this time of the year, like that January, February time frame of tournaments, West Coast, Hawaii, Texas, that seems to be the outlier to where you can get away with
the last 2 years.
A guy who wins the week before has just as much shot to win. Like once we get past the majors and into the summer, for some reason the tournaments seem to shake out to where they don't have as high of odds. But for me, let's go 6 to 4 because we're gonna go down. Number 6 for me is Scotty Scheffler. Once again, just it's time for him to get back on the horse and get really into a groove here. So in this type of course, the type of 3 courses where he can do it. We've seen it before. West Coast. Comfortable playing on the West Coast. You already said him. Akshay Bhatia for me as well. He's my number 5 guy here. And then I'm going back to a guy I played last week and it turned out for me, Eric Cole, coming off another good week. He started off hot last year. I'm hoping he keeps that going. He finished T13 at the Sony Open last week. So I'm riding Eric Cole as my number 4 this week. Give me your 6-4.
Don't ever say that you're riding Eric Cole ever again. We got to talk about something. Did you see Maurice Jones-Drew pause?
Yes,
well,
I did.
Yeah,
and it was freaking awesome.
That's what I'm saying.
Like,
do you think they can ride the D? And he stared at that man until he repeated "ride the D."
No, what was better than the stare even was the roll of the eyes and the. Okay, yeah. I'm gonna do this. I guess
that's what I'm saying. Like if we're gonna everybody heard it, I'm not gonna let you get away with that one.
Exactly.
That's just like I guess Jaden Daniels has his own, or Jaden Milner, either the Alabama or LSU has his own line of clothing, and the acronym stands for "Let a Naysayer Know."
Oh yes, yeah, they brought that. And it was Pat McAfee who said, "That's not what I thought it meant."
And then Desmond and Joey could not keep their shit together. So 4, 5, and 6. I'm actually gonna. I got Patrick Cantlay, Patty Ice. He starts to kick it into gear. This is kind of that mid to upper tier tournament where, again, it's not the John Deere or the Barbasol, but it's not a signature event. So Patrick Cantlay, Adam Shank, because he ranks out enough in my model to get my attention. He's 16th in my model, number 1 in my heart. He just signed an endorsement deal with French Lick Resorts, home of the Pete Dye course.
You love French Lick.
Love French Lick, baby. Not just for Pluto Water and Larry Bird. And then Ricky Fowler, come on down. Again, there are certain names that when they jump out at you on your model, and Ricky's 10th in my model this week. And so I'm gonna give Ricky some love. And then we got 3 spots left. Who you like up top?
Yeah, so this is what I like up top, and I'm went a little top heavier. 2 out of my 3. Number 3, I'm going Chesson Hadley. I think he's just playing well right now. It just makes sense. The numbers line up, and then as well as here, these 2 guys, because they are they have the ability to score low, really anywhere they go. These 2 guys are both starting on La Quinta as well. Like I said, my reasonings earlier, but both Patrick Cantlay at number 2 and then Xander Schauffele at number 1. It just seems like everything is lining up for their situation this week to go low and to run away with this one. So I like both of them to really turn out this week. Who are your 1 to 3 or 3 to 1, whichever order you choose to go?
I overlooked Cam Davis a lot last year because I got snake bit once or twice, but he played really well at the Sony on Thursday, kind of flirting with the leaderboard early up top. We saw him. And he finished 30th. And so the numbers for him, keep him in my top 9. So I'm going to give Cam Davis some love. Justin Thomas is 4th in my model. And when you talk about ball striker of ball strikers, he's kind of dialing back in. I think he's going to have a little bit of a fire under his, in his belly, because he was not out at the Century. He did not qualify for the FedEx Cup. He had to play in the fall, and he didn't accomplish really any of his goals from last year. And then number 1 in my model, number 1 ball striker, I'm with you, Scotty Scheffler. Come on down. Yeah. You almost, now if you're on DraftKings, I can understand wanting to stay away from him at 11-4. But for like what you said, if I see Scotty Scheffler's name, I'm going to snag him up as quick as humanly possible.
I will say that if you're using my specifically my rankings for DraftKings this week, I do have a lot of high price guys in my rankings, so you're not going to be able to play them all. So play it, be smart with your budgeting. But we only have a few minutes left. Let's get to the announcements that we've been teasing kind of all show. We have a few exciting ones. So first of all, if you've been following us on social medias this week, we have some clothing that dropped. We have some lines. If you go over to, and because I keep typing it in wrong. If you go over to where is it? DC4LCustomTees.com. I always get the 4 and the L mixed up, so I wanted to make sure I read it right. DC4LCustomTees.com. You can get our newest merch. One that is a 3-putt kind of joke putt shirt. Awesome fun, but the biggest one that is going to tease a new segment we got coming out next week. You can get a t-shirt that says Morning Wood on it. And I don't know if that excites you like it excites us.
Morning Wood always excites me. Speaking of Morning Wood, did you know that back at the American Express back in the day, this was the Bob Hope Desert Classic, right? And it used to be around. It used to be done until like 2005 or 12, somewhere in there. Yeah. This was a 5-day tournament. That's famously why they couldn't get a lot of the top guys to commit. But they used to have what they called the Bob Hope, the Classic Girls. And they would. It was almost like they were. It was exactly. They would find local young ladies who were in college, or they might be on the pageant circuit.
Sounds like how Barstool started.
And they would come out and they would follow around the featured groups, and there was just it was
Yep.
kind of like ringside entertainment, because again, this was the Bob Hope Desert Classic, and this was also a celebrity pro-am for
Sure.
the longest time. You know, Frank Sinatra. I'm looking at a picture of Sammy Davis Jr., Bob Hope, Johnny Miller, and President Gerald Ford. So that there is a little bit of that history and that little bit of kind of pizzazz that is lost in the new age of golf. But this is this has traditionally been kind of a fun special tournament in the PGA Tour. So we don't have the Bob Hope girls anymore, but we do have Morning Wood right around the corner.
We do. And if you like fun golf attire, or not even golf attire, just everyday attire, sweatshirts, coffee mugs, t-shirts, whatever you want to find on there, we have these 2 designs up now. We have more designs coming. I promise you that. I got a lot in the wheelhouse, if you want to say, getting ready to go.
The hopper.
In the hopper. That's a better analogy. Thank you. Ready to go, working with the guys over at DC4L Custom Tees. So stay tuned for those. We will be dropping those soon. Yeah, and look, the AMEX is here this week. Let's get into it. The golf season's here. I love it. We got divisional round football coming up this week as well. The wild card was crazy and boring at the same time, and I loved it.
Boring.
That's going to do it for us here on Divots and Pivots tonight, guys. And don't forget, you can email us at the show, divotsandpivots@gmail.com. Email us throughout the week. We will get to your emails during the show, or you can email us live on the show. We'll keep an eye on it. I'm Andrew LeDuc, a.k.a. Mr. Mallard. I have it mirrored. This is Bud Copeland. Check us out every Tuesday here on Fantasy Sports Corporation, 8 o'clock. We love you guys. Stay classy.